Hey, what's up? Now, if you remember all the way when we started this video series, all the way back, we talked about this guy. And so I guess this, for lack of a better word or term, I guess it's pretty much just a long-term usage summary or blabbery, if you like, because I don't know what I'm saying here. Basically, to sum it up, this knife is just kind of doesn't suck in any way, but it's not like outstanding. You know what I mean? I don't know what you mean. I don't know if you know what I mean because I'm on this side of the camera and I won't know till after. But anyway, when we get into a knife this small, right? We're thinking, okay, no, it's going to be a tiny little pocket knife. We want it to slice really good because that's probably what we're doing. There's going to be seeing a lot of apple duty, and yeah, when we get into a knife this small, we have less than 3 inches of edge length and roughly 3 inches overall because you measure blade back to the never mind, and you're less than 7 inches overall, and sub an inch deep. We get into a knife this size. We're thinking about it being a good slicer, and I guess that's the main problem with this knife, is that it's got this Kershaw grind on it, this very stereotypical Kershaw grind, where it's, you can really sharply see this is the original stock right here, and they remove the back and they bring the grind up, and I guess that's my main complaint, is that it's not flat. Where you'd like it to be flat. You'd like it to be a flat grind. Now, this does mean you get a very narrow behind the bevel, but with it proportionally being this thick, you're very easily digging all the way up past the thin point, and then you're very rapidly getting to what actually is a fairly decent, stock size here. And then this is more of a weakness of the Kershaw grind in general, where if you're cutting into stuff and you're getting sunk in all the way, you get stuck up really easily, because this comes out to the full stock, and you can't wedge it in there anymore. Obviously, in a knife this size, you'd want it to be a bit slicier. Now, this is not a knock against the steel. It's actually, what do we got here? This is just the standard 8CR13 MOV out of China, out of the China factory. And I can tell you without any hesitation that this heat treat is real good. Real good. Cuts stuff up, doesn't chip easily, and for something you'd expect to not perform very well, it actually just, it's clearly not in the super steel category, and that's fine. But you get all the advantages of kind of just not giving a crap, right? Where actually, by pure coincidence, I've actually put this through two drain pipes. That, like a gutter pipe that comes down. In my case, it doesn't actually go into the yard, or drain into the yard for rainwater. And yeah, I've actually put it through two different one of those, and there is quite a bit of damage that I won't get out, especially right down there. Maybe for another 5 years or so. Yeah, I mean, also, when are you using this part of your knife, right? But most of the damage was superficial, like to the coating here and on that side. And you can clearly see where it gets hung up on the stock, or the part of the grind there. You can see where the coating has come off because you're sinking it all the way in, and then it gets wedged, right? And just there's a couple scratches that way. One tiny little chip that I got out without any effort, and the tip is, yeah, don't worry about it. Other than that, we've got this very classic Hinderer design that's just real sexy, real, like, gives you that image of it being big, tough, and a brute kind of thing, and it's actually the tiniest thing. we already did the tape measure. It's very, very tiny. Now that's really good if you are doing that thing that knife people don't like to do. You know what I mean? We won't talk about it, but the abusive behavior. Now, in a knife this small, you have very little actual lever space, so it doesn't require a grind this tough if you were to be using it for that practice we won't talk about. You could get away with a flat grind, or any other non-hollow grind like this to improve your slicing without getting jammed up, and it would still be decently tough, I guess, because you just you shouldn't be prying. Oops, I said it. You shouldn't be doing that with this much space, only using this much space. You want to maximize your, well, I mean, I guess you want to maximize it, but you want to get it in there and get it into the tough part of the blade, right here where it's full thickness stock right there, right? Now I guess that leads me into design, where we get this tiny itty bitty little stop pin, and we get this little heritage of ZTs having the studs back up onto the scales or the handles, and I think that's probably your failure point, especially you get like a 300-pound gorilla going at it. That's probably going to be your failure point, because it's a tiny little bitty thing. And then the rest of it, by comparison, we have this big ass lock frame on it. We've got the over travel stop, and we have the cutout on the around it, the whatever, you can see it, cutouts on this side, and yeah, you get this crazy solid contact right there, and these thick scale handles that just it feels like it should be a tank, and it is, and then you realize that it's hand doesn't fit on it. I guess that's the main complaint most people had, was just a little bit too small, and I would agree with that. If you're hammer gripping, your pinky is just on there. You're sort of in that sort of subcompact 9mm 380 problem, where you're not really gripping it with your pinky. And unlike in firearms where you're meant to be gripping like this, right, with these fingers, you actually do need to lever your pinky to cut stuff while you're, in order to gain the most leverage onto your surface, cutting surface. If you're not in a hammer grip, if you're in a standard grip like this, you're just completely off the end. And I don't have that. I don't have enormous hands either, right? And if you're choked up, like all the way, and if you're on apple duty, where did the knife go, first of all? But second, these are in your way, and you can clearly feel that gap, and they stick out pretty proud there, and you're not really, just digs up underneath your knuckle there, and you're kind of just like, what the, so yeah, I don't recommend it for apple duty, but for every day, it's neat. It's really, it just doesn't suck. I mean, this clip is good. The handle's nice and heavy. Everything is just kind of it doesn't suck. And that is, I guess, part of the problem, where you take something out and you go, ooh, right? And this just sort of, all right. I mean, there are definitely worse ways you can spend, with Canadian pesos, let me convert that, about $70 now. There's definitely worse ways you can spend $70 than this, and yeah, I don't know. It seems like you'd want it to be a little bit. I think now, after a few years, it's lost its luster a little bit, and I think after not carrying it for a while, you really tend to forget how good it is, right? And I guess that's another problem I have with just me personally, is that if it weren't for this scratching up everything else in my pocket, I'd probably still be carrying it. But It's fallen by the wayside now in favor of, you know, G10 handles, like, or yeah, scales again, and, you know, and some better steel. But it doesn't suck. If you're looking for exactly this, something kind of more brutey, that's you know, that isn't that big but still kind of looks, you know, not that aggressive, and occasionally you can cut stuff on it, then sure, go ahead. There are other options in the size range. Most of them are more expensive, but, you know, considering that you get what you get for your $70, it's not that bad. And that's my takeaway from having this knife for a few years now. It just doesn't suck. It's not, you know, standout great, other than that heat treat, actually. It's not like, you know, standout great and everything. You know, you get those crazy handles on there, and you get this lock bar on it, and you're like, oh man, it's gotta be great. And you just, I'm cutting stuff and I'm not inspired, and then you're like, I'm wedging stuff, and maybe, yeah, but you're gonna get a broken thing. You're gonna get a broken bar when you might as well just get a wrench or something, right? But yeah, that's I guess my long-term impressions of it. So what do we have? We have, again, you know, conversion rates suck, so that's not its problem. But yeah, there are worse ways to spend $70, and I guess I've gotten my money's worth out of it, really, and a lot of mileage. And I'm really happy with it. And again, if it wasn't scratching everything in my pocket, then I'd probably still be carrying it a lot more. So yeah, that's what I think about it. Later. All right. Now, as an addendum to the previous video, the long-term impressions of the Cryo 1. Well, I guess depending on how long I blabber in this video, it might be separate. I'm just going to compare it with, you know, that. This is the Cryo 2. Now, this is, by comparison, not one of the first production runs like that one was. I had to wait a long-ass time to actually get this. Now, it's not going to be so much a long-term comparison as it is just sort of, you know, I can show you the differences and then tell you what I think about it. Yeah, it's, you know, at first glance, you think it's the same knife, right? It's clearly the same knife. It's very clearly the same knife, just bigger. And that's what everybody wanted, right? Yeah, so we get up into the grip. We get lots of leverage down here. Even, you know, normal grip, we still get lots of leverage. It's a standard size knife now. We're getting, you know, back into regular knife territory. And just literally going to a CAD program and then going boop and bringing it up to this, I'm not totally sold on it, if I'm honest. There are actually a couple subtle differences. And I think the biggest one that I noticed was actually that the lock bar cutout actually goes the other way. I don't know how well you can see that, but on a Cryo 1, you can see it's removed from this side, and the Cryo 2 is removed on the inside. And whether or not you want to debate that, sure, you can talk about that till I don't know, what's a good expression? Dogs come home, run out of spit, whatever. For intents and purposes, it's a big ass lock bar, so we're not really worried about it. We got over travel stop. We got the same. Actually, it's the same size, because it's just a standard production run of pocket clip here, and yeah. And so at first glance, you think it would be just actually just, you know, booped up a little bit, but it's not. We get into like the subtle details of using it, and the jimping here on the top of the blade is actually significantly different. This is nice and sharp and grabby right there. It's smooth here, and then you get up on the blade and it grabs you. Actually, yeah, it grabs you pretty good right there, and that's great. Part of it being the small, you kind of need that, right? We get into the bigger one, and it's just, what's going on there, guys? That's not okay. This is, what is this? What is that, right? Yeah, and then we get into the same problems of the smaller one has, which is more of a problem with the Kershaw grind in general, where it's kind of hollow, and then it very rapidly comes out to the full stock thickness. And actually, as a note, it's not actually any thicker, so they didn't really boop it this way, you know? We're still suffering from the same problems. It's a little less exacerbated because it's not any thicker and it's deeper, so you know the steepness isn't as bad. But we still have that problem that's inherent to the grind design. You know, there's all those arguments that, yeah, if you're cutting stuff pretty shallowly, you shouldn't be really. You can cut stuff really good like this, right? But if you're sinking it all the way into the material like that, you're gonna get jammed up. And yeah, I don't know. It's not as close as you think it is. I actually do like this one, the smaller one, better for what it is. And obviously, you know, the fanboy took over a little bit, and at the time the dollar didn't suck. So, you know, it was $50-$60 then. Now it's $80 for this thing. And there are, again, worse ways to spend $80. It does come with that really great heat treat out of the China factory that they got going on here. And, you know, it could be completely worse. You know, for I don't know, $80 here, what's the competition? Gosh, I'm totally blanking here, but listen, it's the internet. Go find out, right? There are worse ways to spend $80. And, you know, not all of them will give you full thickness metal handles and a lock bar and all that jazz. Actually, of note, the stop pin is actually slightly larger on this one, and it's not lined up like the other one. But it still probably is your failure point. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't suck. It looks good. It's dirt cheap. So I mean, you could probably, you know, hack through a tree. I'm not saying that you should, but you probably could. And if it breaks, you just don't have to care. Now, for those people who say $80 is not a cheap knife, get out of here, right? This is a cheap knife, all right? You should readjust your sights a little bit. But yeah, this is, again, it's that Hinder design. It looks so good and it's so comfortable, and then over the long term, those little details sort of get to you. And I mean, it's not bad. And again, I think the main complaint is really sort of just me being an idiot, where it's scratching up everything in my pocket. And you know, I went to the G10 scales, went back to the G10 scales, right? So it doesn't suck, and it looks good, and blah blah blah. Worst ways to spend $80. You've heard that shtick already. That's just, you know, another look at it. I'm pretty sure somebody's done this video already, but you get to see it and hear it with my accent and in poor lighting and filmed on a loaf of bread. Isn't that better? See ya.